call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Mayor Stone is absent, so I will be acting on his behalf. Approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes? Council?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Joe, second by Diane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Agenda approved. Minutes from the June 2nd, 2021 regular meeting. You all have those in your packet. Any questions, changes? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Shallen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Joe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. We're now going to move to our public open forum. We do recognize that many here are present to speak about an agenda item. And while we do not have a public hearing this evening, we will ask you to stand or possibly designate a spokesperson to speak on your behalf regarding your concerns. Remember to please limit your comments to 3 minutes. So we'll open the open forum, public open forum. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the council? Please step to the podium, speak your name and address for the record. I saw 3 hands, so just one at a time.
Chris Siebert, 731 Country Club Road. First of all, I'm asking to change the language from substantial development to sold to outside entity. Substantial can't be quantified or qualified. It's up for debate on what substantial is, whereas sold is sold. Mr. Click's property in Glenwood that started selling items in 2015, he still owned over 75% of the property at the start of 2020. So it obviously wasn't a real big need or want in the community. So please change the language from substantial to sold to outside entity. Secondly, the reason why I pointed out that the property in Glenwood didn't sell is because it's right across from the marina in Glenwood. The marina on Facebook that advertised their public slips, they are now full, and so they're going on with their expansion. However, the hotel in Glenwood is advertising, hey, bring your truck and trailer up, put your boat in the marina. They're going to have a parking problem. They are going to be facing issues that we're trying to stop now, and it's not going to work. There's not enough parking. You can't restrict the parking overnight if it's on private property. So at least change the language so that we can see if there's a true demand in the community, a true want, a true need, instead of just letting him develop it because substantial isn't exactly something that can be quantified or qualified. Did I get in?
Yep, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ella Scott Meyer from 625 Lakeshore Drive. And number one, we thought we were in a residential area when we moved there. Before we knew it, our neighbors, before we knew our neighbors and who likely was going to be around, now we have a B&B right next to us. Our weekends on our lake are already busy. Putting 50 to 60 more slits in is really going to impact our whole lake, which is not that terribly big. The people that come, we don't know where they're coming from. I'm sorry, I don't want people from Minneapolis over here. That's not my prerogative, but I think most of us don't want the kind of people that we have protesting and what have you. And my question would be, the people that come just for those slits, are they going to help support the lake? Is Mr. Click going to do extra stuff because he'll be making extra money? He never took care of the grass or the waterway there at all. And what's with no toilets or garbage containers? Until recently, he didn't even care for the grass or the shoreline. Why make it such a busy place in our residential area? Is money the only thing that counts here in Sauk Center? Traffic is getting difficult. What more do we have to do to keep up with all this? We have traffic on Lakeshore Drive all the time now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Dumankaki. I live at 867 Lakeshore Drive. I'm Heidi, in respect to you, I will ask, how many of my neighbors here from Lakeshore Drive and around the golf course are here? Can you raise your hands, please? And I'm going to do a really short poll again. How many of you are in favor of Mr. Click's development? Thank you. Thank you. How many are opposed? Thank you. I'm going to summarize. We started this process back in January 12th. We had over 70 neighbors present their wishes, their emails. Over 20 emails were read into the record. None in favor of this proposed redevelopment and rezoning. For 6 months, this item has been tabled by the Planning Commission. Basically, they waited till everyone fell off the table. We showed up, neighbors showed up at every single meeting, watched every monthly agenda packet. Every time it was tabled, we waited. It finally got through last week when only 4 or 5 of us even figured out it was happening. What we have now is a concerned neighborhood. Redevelopment in its best enhances, provides additional services, or replaces a need or fills a need which is not or no longer there. We're talking about housing, wonderful. The golf course is already scheduled for R1. It's zoned R1 housing. You as a council have approved an R2 section to provide additional multifamily housing. To expand it from there changes the character of this very quiet, but now busy, as you just heard, neighborhood with undeveloped streets, undeveloped sewer, water, and storm. We don't have those things. We can't support them because of the way the street's constructed. Redevelopment concerns should always look at the neighborhood in which it's around and whether the redevelopment will enhance, better, or add to. None of this development does that. It puts a marina in the middle of 2 residential homes without any thought as to the people who are already there, without any thought as to parking. Mr. Click has proposed to do pontoon rentals, fishing boat rentals, kayak, wakeboards, you name it. Where are they going to park? There's no bathrooms, there's no screening, there's no trash, there's no nothing. There's no requirement for it. Second thing redevelopment does, brings new economic life into this area. You want to do that? Add housing. It supports your schools, it supports your youth sports, it supports everything that you want in this city to make it grow. And your city is growing. And the third thing redevelopment doesn't do, it doesn't act materially and detrimentally to the area around it. We just heard from the DNR at our big Sauk Lake Association that we have now one of the best walleye lakes in the region. You add that much traffic onto Lakeshore Drive, which does not have storm sewers, floods into the river, the lake, puts a marina in there with 60 boats when already our boat traffic on the weekends is a crazy mess on that corner. You are not adding to the area. You are detrimentally and materially adversely affecting the neighborhood, which has grown, prospered, and is settled. I beg you, with all due respect, to please consider the neighborhood that's already there. All these people who are already there versus the needs of one businessman who's decided this is what he wants to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council? And I'll ask a third and, oh, I'm sorry. Please state your name and address.
Ron Bergerman, 829 Lakeshore Drive. I'll keep it short and simple. 2 questions for the council. If you vote this through, how will it enhance our community? Sauk Center as we know it, a nice, quiet, conservative community. Number 2, how will it enhance our neighborhood where we've purchased our home to hopefully be a retirement home, to bring grandkids and enjoy the peace and quiet that we've experienced all our lives coming up here to camp, first at Sinclair Lewis Park, and now lucky enough to purchase a home on Lakeshore Drive. If this was coming through when I was looking at the house, I never would have purchased. I'm not interested in property values going up because of a resort or golf club atmosphere next to us. I don't care about the property value going up. I want it to stay manageable. So please ask yourself, what does this do for Sauk Center? And what does it do for our community? If you lived there, I would think maybe you would think long and hard about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council?
Cindy Nelson, 407-43 Sauk Lake Road. My point is that we came up here for lake country. We love Sauk Lake. We love the atmosphere that it has. It's busy enough right now. We do not need to add 60 more boat slips. That part of the lake is a narrow section anyways, and it's taking away what everyone had already said. We're here for lake country, peace and quiet, enjoying time with our families, not a Valley Fair atmosphere where people come to, do golf carts, mini golf, I think it was also. All of this activity. Sauk Center is a nice, quiet community. That's why we came here. And I agree with what you said. If people would have already known this, would they have come? Probably not. Let's keep Sauk Center and Sauk Lake what it is, a lake country atmosphere for families to enjoy with their grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the council?
My name's Katie Detterman. I'm 851 Lakeshore Drive. And sorry, I just came running in from a girls' basketball game. So I caught the tail end. I agree 100% with these neighbors. I'm not going to elaborate the same thing we all feel. I know a lot of you guys have young kids. Chris, my husband, and I, we bought that place 15 years ago. We were very young in that neighborhood, by far. We wanted to raise our family there. We wanted to see them grow. It's not just affecting we're the neighboring property to this marina. It's also affecting all these new houses that are being put up down the way. And they all have kids. They run back and forth. It's not designed for it. And I can tell you, just last week, there was a family that stopped. We have a bay, it looks like a park-like setting. He's got boat slips and docks already starting. They park their vehicle on the side of the road. Kids go out, they're fishing off the dock, they're playing around. We're not designed for it. Our septics and sewers run between our house and the lake. Who's gonna pay for all that? We'd have to uproot all of our homes there. I just want you guys to take a lot of consideration and also put yourselves in our shoes. And would you like to see your kids and grandkids and so forth go on like that? Because it's not a smaller golf course with a unique feel with lake property on the other side. And we all strive and work really hard every day for it as human beings and small families. Not one guy who sees this big picture 30,000 feet up and he just wants to make his life better and his people. I mean, he's not the single man that wants to just run a family life. And that's what you're affecting here in this room. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Sarah Colfett, 875 Lakeshore Drive. I also agree with everything that has been previously stated, except for I am very open and welcoming to visitors coming to Sauk Center. I don't worry about the people who come. I just worry about increasing the level of busyness of my personal neighborhood on a permanent basis. I would like to just take a moment to make sure that we address the fact that this has been a very long, convoluted process, and I want to make sure that it was done correctly and was not rushed through. I did have a chance to talk with Shallon and share my concerns today, and I did send a very late, I apologize for that, email to all of you as well. Please just consider the fact that this process has been done in a long manner with very little notice to us. My main point is the fact that we did not have a chance to hear about this before it was presented as a proposal. I think a neighborhood meeting would have gone a long way to answering some of these questions and concerns that we have, and at least giving us a chance to share with them. As Amy demonstrated, there's and I shouldn't say that, maybe there are more people here who just chose not to raise their hand, but we know of one person here who is in favor of this, and he does not live in this neighborhood. Has there been an extensive environmental study done? As we all know and have told you, Mr. Click has done numerous things to that property where the marina will go already. Do we know that those were all done correctly, or is he just willing to pay a fine? That is probably what I want to end on, is just equity. Sometimes I think we have people in this world who are really go-getters, and they have the money and they have been successful, and I really respect the business he built up in Glenwood and the fact that he is a successful person. That is wonderful. But it doesn't mean that his rights should, and the fact that he has money, should go further than us, the existing homeowners in the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council?
Ed Seaver, 731 Country Club Road. Good evening. Did any of you happen to attend any of the planning and zoning meetings for this work?
Well, there's members of the council
Yeah.
that serve on the committee.
Pardon?
There's members of the council that serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
But did any of you attend even one of those meetings to see what input there was? I take it no.
We've had several meetings regarding this. We've been in attendance of public hearings as well.
For the golf course, the public information hearings that planning and zoning had? I don't recall seeing you. I've been to every one.
What comes to the council level regarding this is what we've been in attendance for. So we've had the public
Okay,
hearings.
So some of this information is getting to you firsthand. I've got several questions. I'll start out with the difference between Steve Click owner and Steve Click revocable trust developer. Are those both accurate statements?
You can continue on. I'm just going to remind you, your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Okay, because I read one place that Steve Click is the owner, and other places that the revocable trust is the developer. I would think that you should know. Next, has the site development agreement been agreed to and signed by Steve Click, the revocable trust, and the city?
You can continue.
Do you know that it has been?
Many of your questions will be answered during our discussions later on the agenda.
Okay, because otherwise, aren't you kind of putting the cart in front of the horse? Without any signed agreement with Steve Click, you're willing to go on and approve. I also read in one place that the shoreline overlay district has been amended. Are you aware of that? And how has it been amended?
You can go on.
Again, you're going to approve something that you aren't up to date on, don't know the whole score. Next question. The area that is to be rezoned, has been rezoned, R2. Is that going to encroach on the shoreline overlay district boundaries?
Again, many of your questions will be answered later on when we discuss this on the agenda.
Well, unless the shoreline overlay district has been amended, it shouldn't be allowed. And there are measures in your government rules that show that it would have to be removed. Better get your house in order.
Sir, you've
No.
extended your time. If you'd like
Oh.
another minute, that's about what we could offer.
I'm sorry. If you had answered my questions, maybe it could have gone faster. But you've been unwilling to come forth with answers.
Many of your answers, I said, will be
Is
asked, will be.
there anybody else that wants to speak that I'm taking away their time?
Out of respect of
Am I
the other
taking
items
away
on the
time from
agenda, sir,
anybody?
we do have many people, aside from what you're all here for, that are here for other agenda items. So I'd just
Okay,
like to respect their
your
time as well.
Last thing, then, before I have to quit. You mentioned somebody mentioned the last meeting last week, that the planning and zoning approved this, agreed to it. None of the people there were allowed to speak. Finally, then, are you approving a PUD or a residential PUD? There's a big difference. And I think you should find out the difference before you say, yeah, we'll do it.
Excuse me.
I think you've got way too many questions to vote on whether you're going to pass this or not, irregardless of the information that you get after we're done talking here. Because that information should have been at your disposal a long time ago. I'm sorry, but I'm not happy.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council? Hearing no one, we will move on to public hearings, which we have none. That brings us to our reports and presentations. The Police Department Monthly Report. Officer Jensen, Sergeant Jensen, excuse me.
All right, good evening, council. I got some May stats activity report for May 2021. Well, much of the same, but everything is up a little bit. 247 traffic stops, verbal warnings and citations, combination there. We did 57 separate door checks where businesses requested us to do some extra patrols. We did some of those. We did 135 different self-initiated foot patrols. We had 14 medical calls, 24 assisted person calls, 10 alarm calls, 10 welfare checks, 6 separate unwanted person calls. We assisted 27 other agencies, State Patrol, Melrose, St. Cloud PD, Todd County. Again, those aren't us leaving the city limits. Some of those are other agencies will call us to have us check something in town for them. However, there are some assists on the State Patrol and Melrose PD, maybe running up to Todd County a little bit. We came into contact with 42 citizen contacts. Most of those are your late evening, 1, 2 in the morning, stop and check and see what folks are up to, walking around. 28 different just informational calls. We did cite 12 drivers throughout the month of May for driving on revoked or suspended driver's licenses as well. Other news, we got that second brand new squad car up and running finally. After sitting in the garage for several months, all the parts came in. So now you'll see 2 of those shiny black newer squad cars cruising the streets. Other news, we finally got enough ammunition for our new Glock handguns that we purchased earlier in the year. Everybody's carrying those now. We got qualified. It took us a while to get ammunition because of the shortages, but we got that squared away too. We've been staying busy with the canine. Sonny's been busy with several different higher profile arrests over the last few weeks as well. So we're anticipating things are getting busy all around town. You'll see the numbers are up, which makes sense. Last year, this time, we had the COVID stuff going on. Things are kind of back to normal. We've been running our tails off here the last few weeks with this heat. So, any questions?
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Planning Commission report, Sarah?
Good evening. I believe in your packet you have a copy of the June 8th Planning Commission meeting, and on that agenda, we did have a public hearing for Isaac Winters for a conditional use permit, and also at that meeting was the conversation and discussion about the mixed-use residential commercial planned unit development commission overlay district, which is on the golf course, and there's a draft ordinance. And then also, yesterday on June 15th, we did hold a public hearing for the Centricare for the expansion of the nursing home and the addition or reconfiguration of the parking lot. So you have 3 action items from the Planning Commission on your packet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for Sarah?
Good job.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
City Engineer report, Keith?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We'll update on several projects. First of all, we'll go back in time for last year's 2020 capital improvements project. All the punch list items have been complete on that. We're working very hard to try and keep some of the seeding as watered as best we can. They're watering it twice a day and trying to keep up with these drought conditions, and hopefully it will be working. But we'll have to wait and see whether that has to do any repairs come September once we get past the hot parts of the summer, but we'll see how it goes. But the drought is certainly not helping those conditions. The paving on the project is scheduled for next week, and that'll get that completed, and it'll basically be making sure that the seeding is up and green and growing. That'll be kind of the last thing. So that's last year's job. The Interpretive Center site, as you know, will be bid tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and we'll have that before you. I think it's 4:45 tomorrow evening for consideration of those bids. Looks like based upon the number of bidders, we could get as many as 8 or 9 bids potentially, so we'll see where it goes. So that's pretty pleasing so far, so we'll see where that goes. The South Industrial Park, we're working forward on the designs on that. That's all going well. Some permitting, there's a couple of small wetlands we're gonna have to deal with. It's right in the middle of our large pond, but it's very small, but that's just a couple little things we have to get through, but that's going well. So that project's moving forward. And lastly, the 2022 project, the feasibility report, that slid a little bit. That'll come before you one of the 2 meetings in July. So it's falling a little bit behind, but you'll see it in July. Any questions you may have for me?
Council?
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
Thanks,
very
Keith.
much.
And finally, to Public Works Department report, Ben?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Over the past month, pothole patching has been completed. We lowered a couple sewer manholes that were catching on the plows during the winter, and we patched around those. 8th Street, we had a storm sewer that the bottom actually gave out of it, so we had to fill that in with concrete. That's been repaired. Starting to spray the curb lines for weeds. All the crosswalks are now painted white. Sidewalk inspections were completed in the area south of Sinclair Lewis Avenue and east of Highway 71. Notices have been sent to the property owners in that area. We have received quite a few calls on these, and the contractor is tentatively planning to come the end of July to complete the grinding work. And we are working to address everyone's questions on a timely basis that has called, so we are getting back to those people that had some calls into us. Street sweeping as needed in the parks, splash pad. Everything has been working every day so far. The county came out and did their inspection, and that passed just fine. We did rebuild all 3 feature pumps this year, so pressures and flow have been a little bit better than they have been in the past. Had to replace some chemical lines, and we did get a shipment of chemical, and everything's been working well on that end. Fitness park, the installation of the equipment was completed today, about 95%. Electrical is going to be started tomorrow, and the safety servicing company will be on site tomorrow to begin working on the installation of that. The sprinklers are scheduled to be worked on within the next week, so hopefully we can get that park back up and running. And then once the surfacing is in, then we'll put the black dirt around the exterior of the fitness park and get it seeded and grass growing again. The outdoor rink, the dirt was leveled and construction will begin soon on the new boards, likely next week is what we're tentatively planning. Fish cleaning station is up and running, and we are working on the grass around the exterior when the weather begins to cooperate with us a little bit more on that. We installed a new water fountain bottle filler at the Sinclair Lewis Park. We are planning to install the same thing up at JC Park. The 2 dock extensions for the day use dock are here. One is on, the other one will be on tomorrow. Campground, fair number of small repairs have been made over the past month, such as toilet, shower handle, fan, and some small electrical items. The schoolhouse has been set on its foundation. Towards the end of this week, the block work is scheduled to be completed, and from there we will need to get the steps and floor put on the front entryway to make it usable. After that, a list of all the work needing to be done to the building will be compiled for future completion and planning. Trees, we did plant 60 trees this spring. We placed these in various areas within the city. They are watered on a weekly basis, and the grant reimbursement has been made to the DNR for this year, so we should be seeing that relatively soon. There are a few trees from last year that are not budding out yet. We have been keeping an eye on those, so we are aware, and we're going to replace a couple of those tomorrow that haven't come out yet. And the arena, we've had a couple rentals up there. One of them, they did a really good job cleaning up. Everything went well. One of them didn't go as well, so they did not receive their deposit back. And we've got some more events going on up there in the next coming weeks. Any questions I can answer?
Busy.
Yes.
Good job.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, we're going to move on to action item 7A, approve chamber request for Sinclair Lewis Days, including parade route.
Okay, so tonight the chamber is requesting uses of various city parks, lots, parking lots, and streets for Sinclair Lewis Days. I will go through them quickly. The Amazing Race Medallion Hunt, they will be using the Civic Arena parking lot on Friday, July 16th at 3 p.m. They'll have a DJ on a trailer by the shelter for kids and a band and the band shell for adults with a beer garden provided by the American Legion, and they'll have a pontoon and boat parade. They're requesting to close Park Road and use Sinclair Lewis Park on Friday, July 16th from 5 p.m. to dusk. They have food vendors, also the use of Sinclair Lewis parking lot on Friday from 5 p.m. to dusk. Fireworks, they want to close Park Road and the boat landing for the fireworks permit from Friday, July 16th from 6 p.m. to dusk, and you do have a map attached regarding the fireworks. Crazy Days, they want the use of the downtown sidewalks for Crazy Days sale Saturday, July 17th. Have a craft fair and family fun festival, close Park Road and the use of Sinclair Lewis Park and parking lot for Saturday, July 17th from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. They have a chip-timed 5K and 1-mile run, start and finish by the swings and playground equipment. They want the use of the trail and to close 1 lane on Hickman Drive and Lakeview Drive on Saturday, July 17th at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And they want approval of the parade route that goes from the Industrial Park, Sinclair Lewis Avenue, Elm, 6th, Getty, and 10th back to the Civic Arena parking lot on Saturday, July 17th at 7 p.m. I also put in your packet the itinerary overview that was done at the time that we had the packet that was put together, and I understand there may be some small changes, but it gives you a complete list of everything that is planned for Sinclair Lewis Days this year. So the action requested of you tonight is to approve the uses as requested, including the road closures and the parade route.
Okay. Are there any questions of Vicky? If not, I will be asking for motion to approve the uses as requested, including road closure and parade route.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Diane. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Shallen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 in favor, none against. 7B, approve budget amendment for invasive species annual project.
So this item before you tonight is the City and Big Sauk Lake Association and the Sauk River Watershed. We've been working together over many years to control curly-leaf pondweed in Sauk Lake. You'll know that this was the weed harvester project. It is an invasive species of the lake. Funding for this project was collected by special assessment and was put into a fund at the watershed. This project has since transitioned from weed to spraying versus harvesting. This fund at the watershed, each year the BLSA submits a plan and a budget to the city for ratification and then to the watershed for inclusion in the next year's budget. The city has been approached by the Big Sauk Lake Association to consider utilizing some of the funds in the Invasive Species Fund for management of common carp in the lake. They've retained Tony of WSB to prepare a management plan and implementation report for the city, which you were provided. He is here tonight, and he's going to give you a quick rundown of what that proposal includes. And after that, then we'd be looking to amend the 2021 budget. And that was originally approved in 2020. And if you do elect to amend the 21 budget, then that'll go to the watershed, and then it will allow a Big Sauk to begin this process. And then going into 2022, we'll have that budget shortly, which will be the second phase of this project. So if you would, I would like to have Tony come up and just kind of give you a brief overview of what it is that they will do for this project.
Thanks, Vicki. Good evening, council members. I'm glad to be here tonight to talk a little bit about this project. I did notice Vicki didn't try to say my last name, so I'll say it. My name's Tony Havranek. I'm the Director of Fisheries and Ecology for WSB, consulting, engineering, planning, and environmental firm based out of Golden Valley. I think it was about a year or so ago, started talking to members of Big Sauk Improvement Association about doing something in terms of common carp management. Common carp are really well distributed all across the state and across the Midwest and across the country. So some folks might not realize how invasive they actually are, but they are listed as an invasive species imported from Europe back in the late 1800s. And what I've been working on since 2009 is developing long-term management strategies for common carp to improve water quality, fisheries, and overall ecological integrity. So what that means basically is applying science. A lot of that science was developed right here at the U of M, the Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center. And what we do and what this project is proposing to do is to develop a population estimate, actually figure out how many carp are in Big Sauk Lake. And then after that, comparing that to known threshold values. So how many could be in here without dramatically impacting water quality in the lake? We've done this in a number of places here in Minnesota, a number of other states. Just flew in from California today after looking at a project out there. So the things that we're talking about doing in this project have been applied for a number of years. And we've seen some really, really cool, dramatic turnarounds in some of these water bodies. This project, like Vicki said, it's really a one-year project just because of where we're starting. We'll be looking at doing something late summer, early fall to begin with. So for 2021, or calendar year 2021 budget, I think you guys all have this in your packet. What we'd be looking at doing is being out here on Big Sauk this fall and electrofishing, the same equipment the Minnesota DNR has. And what we'd be doing there is capturing carp to develop that population estimate, and then also surgically implanting high-frequency radio transmitters in a small number of fish, 10 to 12 adults. And basically what that does, it lets us understand how the fish use the lake, the river systems, and then the tributaries that are coming into the to the lake basin itself. We'll also be looking at training up Big Sauk volunteers to do some of the telemetry surveys or mapping where these radio tagged fish are going. That helps save budget for other project activities because those folks are right here and really can just send us emails showing us where those locations are. And then towards the end of calendar year 2021, we'll start developing what's called an integrated pest management plan. And I'm sure some of you have seen, there's been carp removals out here before. We've seen other lakes or in watersheds where folks come in and do some carp removals. Really what this is going well above and beyond that. It's understanding the ecology of the lake and how those invasive species function within that and what steps are necessary beyond removal for long-term management, right? So you could go into a lake and take out 50,000 pounds. Is that a lot? Is it most of them? Is it just a few? You don't know. So that's why we want to develop that population estimate. And then looking at those radio tag maps or those telemetry maps, we can figure out what, if any, of those tributaries the fish are using as migration routes to find spawning sites outside of the lake. That's typically what we see. And then, into the future, looking at, hey, is there an opportunity to do some fish barriers? Is there an opportunity to do some bluegill stocking, et cetera, habitat restoration? So really what this project does is sets the lake and the Lake Association up to develop a long-term plan and then work cooperatively with the watershed district to obtain grant funding for implementation beyond 2022. I wanted to say a lot more, but I said I'd better do But it's really cool and really fun.
I do know the carp make great fertilizer for a garden.
Yeah, and that's a conversation we could have later. We're actually,
Yeah.
there's another company that we actually run, it's called Fish 2.0, and we're the largest transporter of live rough fish in the US. And so because we have all of these projects all over the state and all over the Midwest, we're trying to head towards sustainability, right? We talk about that all the time. And so what we're doing is collecting the fish from all of these different projects that we're doing, and then those are transported out to the East Coast in Canada for human food. And I could talk all night about that, but
Don't.
yeah. So anyway, it's really interesting to bring it up, and there's some fertilizer application there too, but really looking at putting these fish to good use.
I'll let you know if I bury a transmitter in my garden.
We'll find it.
Yeah, I know.
Tony, what is your long-term role in this process? If we're setting it up for sustainability and the future outlook for the lake, what beyond 2021 budget do we have to look at this every year?
It's a
for
great
certain amount of
question.
time?
So really what we're looking at here in this initial budget is the data to set up what that long-term plan would look like. And that can be very adaptive. It really is going to depend on what we find for numbers. How many pounds do we need to take out? When can we get them out? How do the fish aggregate or group up? That's what the radio telemetry will tell us. So my goal with this project is to develop all the baseline data sets and the initial plan, right, to set that trajectory. And what we've done with other folks is once you have the plan and it's drafted properly, you can actually use that to go after Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources funding for implementation. And there are other state and federal grant programs that you can tap to do the actual implementation piece because it's all tied right back into water quality, and because you're approaching it from a quantitative aspect, you actually have the numbers to show what you're doing will improve. They're usually really well received. Projects are multi-year as well. And so if we can get this plan done and get the baseline data, if we're implementing in late 2022 and 2023 with some grant funding, and we're able to crash that population out soon, it could be only a 3 to 4 year project, and then it's monitoring after that. It might be something where we're back at maybe once every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It'll depend on the aging as well, because that's included in here. We're looking at patterns of recruitment. It'll be really interesting to see what happens this year at the lower water levels. My expectation is you're going to see some pretty minimal recruitment from carp, just because they're not able to access some of their traditional spawning sites. But they're typically multi-year. So another project we did up in northwest Wisconsin took about 6 or 7 years to reach that project goal. But once we did, the lake flipped, and you can't even get in there in some areas to get the population estimates done via electrofishing. That was a wild rice restoration project, and it worked really well. Silver Lake down in the Metro, that one flipped. That only took 2 or 3 years, but that was a much smaller lake, and we're not talking about a major river system coming through. So my hope is we could work collaboratively with the watershed district to find those additional state and federal funds, and then keep that project moving forward. But by putting in those other steps beyond just removing the carp physically, looking at barriers or other habitat work, we're hoping to prevent additional recruitment in future years.
I guess that was just my initial concern, that there's buy-in from somebody willing to take on that project after your piece of that is done, not that this is a one-year budgetary item and then it goes by the wayside years down the road. No questions otherwise for Tony? Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So if we don't have any other questions, I guess I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the budget amendment for invasive species annual project.
I'll make the motion.
There's a motion by Diane,
I'll second.
a second by Joe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4 in favor, none against. 7C, approve ordinance 803, amending zoning map by approving PUD golf course.
I kind of feel like a lamb being led to slaughter here. So I want to tell you tonight that I would kind of summarize what we have been going through and try to hopefully answer a few questions. I realize this is not a public hearing, but I know there's still questions out there that remain. So I will kind of start out with a summary. Steve Click, as the owner of the old course in Sauk Center, applied for an amendment to the zoning map to allow a mixed-use plan unit development on the course and the adjoining lakefront property. The Planning Commission held a public hearing in January of 2021 and took action on the request at its June 8th, 2021 regular meeting. So this is what we are presenting you tonight. An ordinance has been drafted which details out what will be allowed and certain performance measures that must be met and which require a conditional use permit. Some of the things that will be allowed according to this ordinance, whether it's by permission or by conditional use permit, would be residential uses, single-family, two-family, and multifamily, parks and recreational areas and equipment, essential services such as sewer, water, storm ponds, etc., public or semi-public recreational buildings, low-intensity recreational-related commercial uses, retail specialty or gift shop, restaurant, bar, and food service, meeting room, conference room, special events venue. He has requested limited short-term rentals, pro shop, clothing store, sports courts, tennis court, pickleball, swimming pool, a golf course clubhouse, outdoor skating, cross-country, and snowshoeing, kayaking, paddleboarding, fishing, and pontoon boat rentals, and a boat docking system with rental slips and related required parking and parking lots. So this will give you kind of a synopsis of the types of things that would be allowed. In a mixed-use overlay district, underlying zoning district remains and governs what can be done in the district. In the case of this PUD, the underlying zoning district is R1 and R2 residential. Other standards, including shoreland overlay, also prevail. The shoreline overlay is measured as 1,000 feet from the shoreline. A majority of the course lies under that shoreland overlay district. In addition to the residential uses, this PUD overlay allows some commercial uses which are detailed in the ordinance. These are the gift shop, restaurant, bar, meeting and conference room, special event venues, and the short-term rentals and boat docking. So those are kind of the commercial uses that are allowed within this PUD. The boat docking system includes several performance measures that must be met. Approval of this ordinance would allow 12 boat slips to be installed. These slips are intended to be leased to residents or others who wish to keep a boat on the lake. After the initial 12, more slips can be added as residential units are constructed up to a maximum of 60. The maximum of 60 was proposed after a meeting on site with the DNR. They are the ones that would give that final permit for the system. There's been much concern over the impact to the lake from both a safety and a water quality standpoint. Because it is some of the things that were brought up was concern about the navigation channel. Because it is located in a bay, the dock itself will not protrude into the lake further than a line drawn between the two neighboring properties. This string test, if you will, reveals a dock could protrude about 225 feet into the lake prior to crossing that string test line. We also referred to the DNR study that on any given busy weekend, 10% of a homeowner's boats are on the lake. It is reasonable to extrapolate that 10% of the boats on this docking system could also be on the lake on this busy weekend as well. Using that study, once the system is completely installed, you would think, according to the study, that 6 boats could be on the lake, but if you doubled that amount to 12, Sauk Lake would still not reach maximum boat density. The concern of water quality is a very valid concern. It should be a concern every time anyone, including Mr. Click, puts a dock or a boat on the lake. There was also concerns about traffic and pedestrian conflicts. These also should be considered as future proposals are approved that would come before you. Trails and sidewalks or a linear park could provide options to pedestrians to curtail walking on the street itself, because pedestrians walking on the street was a valid concern that was raised by many of the residents. Any future improvement of Lakeshore Drive should consider pedestrian and vehicular movements in those plans and specs. Additional requests for approvals as project move forward on the golf course could delve into the details of each individual project. These details are governed by the city code, state shorelands, and other regulatory agencies. Another concern or issue has been the concern to the neighborhood is the loss of the neighborhood and the desire for it to stay the same. Unfortunately, nothing ever stays the same, but what we can do is to work to minimize the impact of that change. As you know, the proposal has had significant public commentary that continues to this day, as you've seen tonight. This proposal has been downsized many times over the past 6 months. The Planning Commission has worked to balance the concerns of the public and the rights of the owner and is now recommending approval of this amendment to the zoning map. And you do have Ordinance 803 amending the official zoning map by establishing an overlay district that has been provided to you. You have the most recent copy, which has the yellow highlight on it. There's a couple things that have been modified slightly from the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission had added some language saying market rate on the single family and the 2-family and on the apartment dwellings. However, when you start getting into zoning market rate in an ordinance, in a zoning ordinance, you start kind of get into more of a little discriminatory field, I guess, if you will. It is his intent to have more of a high-end apartment, but by rezoning this, you could have any kind of apartment. There was some concerns about home occupations, and so we did include in there that we would not allow home occupations that are contrary to our code. And our code has very specific items that a home occupation can be. You can't have a mechanic shop, you can't have anything with noise, odor, glare. Well, we didn't want to exclude the ability for people to work from home in an office type situation. A lot of people are teleworking, and it was not the intent to exclude that. So we wanted to be a little more specific on that. Some of the things that the Planning Commission had actually done was they had added some language that any commercial use had to be in the existing clubhouse. The existing clubhouse is not all that large, and so he is requesting that in the existing clubhouse language be removed to allow him to have some other uses on the property. The short-term rental, which was a big item of contention in the neighborhood, he has agreed that he would keep that in the interior of the golf course. In other words, no closer than 400 feet from the perimeter boundaries. One other thing was the boat launch area that he has down there where he puts in his boat lifts and docks. We wanted to be clarified that that is not a public use boat launch. That's not for somebody to go and launch their boat. That's an area where he puts in his lifts. He kind of has his own little private dock over there, separate from where the public dock or the boat docking system would be. And I think the one other thing was when we talked about sport courts, tennis courts, pickleball courts, and he also wants the ability to put a swimming pool in, whether it be in a residential neighborhood that they have a common pool or whether the apartment complex wants a swimming pool. He didn't want to have that excluded, and it is allowed in a residential anyway, but he just wanted to make sure that we would continue to allow that. So that is the ordinance that you have in front of you tonight that is recommended by the Planning Commission with some minor amendments. I don't know, there's some questions I think that were raised tonight. If they wanted to be addressed, I think there was some questions about whether the shoreline district has been amended, and that's not something the city amends. The shoreline district is the DNR regulation that is 1,000 feet from the shoreline, and that is on every shoreline that we have. So that has not been amended. I'm not quite sure what the question was, but I believe it's referring to the apartment building, which is a separate conditional use permit that's being considered right now, and that has to do with the height of the structure. Once it exceeds into that shoreline line, the height of the structure can be 25 feet. And so I think that may have been what that question was about. But no, we did not amend the shoreline. That's shoreline, that's not something that we can do. I don't know, I took some notes to try to write down what some of the other questions were. I think there was a question regarding the boat slips could be added as substantially completion of a residential dwelling took place. I think the request was until the dwelling was sold. I don't know how we could maybe regulate that because we don't know when things are sold necessarily, but substantial completion is kind of like a building code situation where the building official is out there and this is substantially complete or not. You'll find that in a lot of economic type contracts where substantial completion means maybe there's some grading left or some landscaping left, and maybe we can better define what substantial completion is. But I don't know that we should maybe put sold in there because that's just something that we aren't responsible for. We do certificates of completion when things are done, but we don't know when things are necessarily sold. Did you guys write any more notes that maybe you wanted me to answer?
There was a question regarding the request of this and who it applies to, whether it's Steve Click as developer or Steve Click Trust.
Well, Steve, the application will be the legal owner of record of the property. So this is Steve Click. The property has changed names from the irrevocable trust to Steve Click to Click Properties. There's been some different changes in there, but we're still dealing, this is him personally doing this proposal, or the name of the property owner that's on the legal record is who would be the developer. So it's not like there's like, he's Steve Click and the developer is someone else. There's no intention there to circumvent anything by doing that. The permit would be issued to the legal owner of the property.
A few people raised concerns regarding the public utilities, the infrastructure over there. Do you have any commentary on that?
The public utilities, you mean like within interior of the golf course? Our public policy is that if you have a developer come in and he's putting in new infrastructure within his development, that is the responsibility of the developer to do that. That's contrary to when we do a redevelopment, like we have done in the past where it's assessed. And I think there was a concern that he would do some big development and all the owners in the neighborhood would be assessed. But that is not the case. When there's a development that goes in and the developer puts that in, that is his responsibility, unless there's some separate arrangement made with the city, but our city code is that the developer is responsible for that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But.
And then he'd have the ability to tie into the existing infrastructure for our mains and everything. He'd be in charge of the interior development, but as far as getting it
so he
tied
would,
in.
if he was to hook onto our system,
Yes.
Yeah, he would have like a water and sewer access charge through the public utility. And then also his deferred assessment that is hanging out there would be triggered to be paid.
Okay, thank you.
Question I have now, I know a lot of the sewer lines, excuse my voice,
That's okay.
a lot of the sewer lines run behind the properties on Lakeshore Drive. Is that going to be able to handle all of Steve Click's stuff? Or are they going to have to tear their whole
His proposal
backyards
is
up?
not to hook into that. His sewer and water, most of it will go south down toward Country Club Road and the end of Elm Street actually is where
Okay.
there is a sewer access. And then also over to Main Street, under
Okay.
Main Street. And the South Main Street utility connection goes south, the North Main Street goes north and out Lakeshore Drive. Potentially, if he were to develop the very northeast corner of the property, that potentially could go into the Lakeshore Drive system, but it's be very minimal. And so there's really not the intention to access that Lakeshore Drive utility.
Thank you.
So.
Are there any other questions for Vicki?
I mean, just going along with those, there were some questions just about traffic and streets and things like that. I mean, would there potentially be any, I guess I don't know what the best way of asking the question is. I mean, if there is an influx down there, I mean, how does it, something like that
How do we regulate the traffic?
No, I mean, I guess I don't know the best way of asking the question that I'm rolling around in my head.
I mean, a lot of the traffic concerns had to do with conflicts with pedestrian movement.
Right.
And like I had said in my report, it would be very appropriate for the council or the planning commission at the time he came forward to do a residential development or came time forward to do something like that or anything in the interior of the golf course, that you could require him to install trails, install parks, install walkways, install crosswalks, install any of those items. Potentially, because Country Club Road and Main Street are all new and up to city specifications. In the future, I'm sure Lakeshore Drive is going to get to the top of the list, and at that point, we would also have to look at the traffic on that road. But the road itself pretty much meets the width requirements of any road that we have already, except right on the very north end, it doesn't have curb and gutter. That's an older chunk of the road, and that may need to be upgraded at some point. It's just a factor of use, and it's a factor of the condition of the road itself and a condition of the utilities underneath the road.
Vicki, I guess I get concerned with all these 60 boat slips that he wants to put in up there. Where are these people going to park? They're going to park in front of these residents' houses? I wouldn't want that either.
So what it was is the city code requires like a 1-for-3 ratio of parking stalls. So how this is set up in this, that he has to provide a parking spot for every 3 boat slips. And of course, we looked at that DNR study that said that 1 per 6 is probably going to be on the lake. So at 1 per 3, they felt that that was adequate to have in there. So if he was going to put in 12 boat slips, he needs to have at least 4 parking stalls in place prior to the installation of the boat slips. When it gets up to 60, he's going to have 20 stalls. And that's kind of how the city code on that 1-to-3 ratio works. And so that was applied to the boat slips as well. So that's how they work. That's how they work that out.
Because I know I wouldn't want that traffic parked in front of my house.
Oh, and it's understandable,
Yeah.
definitely.
I can see why they're upset.
Well,
Can I make a point of clarification? Lakeshore Drive does not have curbing. It has 10 feet of, about approximately 30 feet of curbing where it hits Main Street. It has another set of old curbing where about where the end of the parking lot and where the pickleball courts are for the current golf course. Everywhere else, there is no curbing. If there is curbing, it's really old. And point of comment, as to the width of the street, when we measured it last summer, you cannot park 2 cars on either side and get safety vehicles through there. You can't get a police car, you can't get an ambulance, you can't get anything through there.
What's going to happen in the wintertime when they have to plow it?
Well,
It's going to be a problem.
yeah, that's what we're having issue.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I can't support this. I'm sorry.
I'll just ask that any commentary, just hold your thought until the council agrees to hear your comments. Thank you.
sorry, I lost my train of thought. Well, in theory, if this ordinance were to pass, even not today, at another time or whatever, in relation to the boat slips, if he does get something, and I know initially it says 12, and it were to go beyond, are there measures that somebody would have to say, you know, hey, this is becoming a nuisance? What are the ways that it can be dialed back or anything like that? Or what measures are there for something like that?
So you're saying that we get boat slips and he puts them in and there get to be more and it does become more of a problem
Right.
than was imagined, and what is our recourse for that?
Right.
If he's complied with everything in the ordinance, I mean, at that point, then we would just have to work with him on that, or it could be a condition of future approvals of residential or whatever that we would amend this. So we can propose an amendment to the ordinance to say, you know what, 1 to 3 didn't work, we want 1 to 1. Or, you know, so the planning commission, because you are the ones that wrote the rules, or the city council, you wrote the rules, you can amend the rules. And because this is the parking is a performance standard within this overlay ordinance. And so as such, you can amend that performance standard as well. And then once you amend that, then any future docking system or whatever would have to comply to that.
Right. Well, I was even just thinking, like with the boat parking itself in the lake, I mean, I don't think we govern how many boats can go in the lake, right? Or boat slips
The final-
docking,
The final permit will be issued by the DNR, not by the city.
right?
You know, we kind of go to the water's edge, and beyond that, that's not us. And that's why we met with the DNR on site prior to taking this on.
And one last question, I'm sorry. So if we wouldn't pass this ordinance, or we held it up and stopped it, what would be potential recourse? Like, would they, I mean, because at the end of the day, it's his property, right? I mean,
It is his property, yes.
So would there be, I mean, would he be able to come back and sue for not being able to allow him to, I mean, it's a stupid question, but,
Well, if you know an attorneys, people can sue anybody for anything.
right,
And so if there was litigation, they would look at process, and they would look at rights, and they would look at those things, and that's all the due process. I don't think that the council should ever vote on anything out of fear of being sued or not sued. I mean, you just have to kind of look at your code, apply the rule, and take action on that. Likewise, if you do approve it, the public has the opportunity to raise that same concern. So
Right.
you've got two sides of a coin, and you're trying to balance it, and that's what the Planning Commission proposed as their balance to
Right.
this. If it is denied, he has the right to reapply. He has the right to ask you to reconsider. That's what his rights are as a property owner. He has a right to sell it. He has a right to donate it to the city. He has a right to change it to another use. And he has a right to plat it, and I believe 225 houses would fit on that course according to density. So, you know, he has a right to develop his property. The adjoining property owners have a right to object. That's how it works. And then you are going to sit there and make the decision, so.
right.
Can I make a motion?
Have a meeting like this, that a property owner could get together and say, no. I mean, I thought that's what this was.
This is, the public hearing was already held, and the public comment was heard. And so,
I understand that concern, and I guess that's where hiring those who follow your beliefs and your system of where you live and what you want the city to look like in the future comes into it. So us as elected officials have to speak for you. So the public hearing is giving us the feedback for us to make those decisions for you on your behalf. But I appreciate everyone being able to come and have, you know, speak to us personally. This is through public hearing and tonight. It's been good. What were you going to say, Diane?
I'll make a motion if you want.
If you're ready
I'll
to
make a
motion?
motion that we deny this. I think it's a crazy idea. I wouldn't want that traffic in front of my house.
There's a motion to deny ordinance 803, amending official zoning map by establishing an overlay district. Do I have a second?
No.
I'll second. And just as a reminder, we don't need a 4/5 to approve, so, but there are only 4 of us here tonight, so just letting you know. So we have a motion by Diane, a second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We're past the discussion point. I had a question for Dan. Are you wanting to deny it outright, or
No, I
are there
want to
just
deny
parts
it
of it
outright.
that, okay.
so what was the vote? I missed it.
We have 2 in favor, 1 opposed.
2
I'm-
and 1?
I haven't,
Jalen, would you want all that traffic in front of your house?
Send it back to planning and zoning. Doing work with planning and zoning.
is there an option to do something like that, Vicki?
There is an option to remand. I'm sorry, I did not say that. You can approve it, deny it, amend it, or remand it back to the Planning Commission.
So how can, now that we're already in the voting, what can I do to,
So if you were to, 1 second, thank you. If you were to approve that we're denying it, then it dies on the table. If you were to deny, so saying no to this motion, then it's a 2 and 2,
But if I vote with Joe,
which is saying no to,
right,
like, you're not against shutting it down.
right, I'm going to vote with Joe.
Okay, so we have 2 in favor, 2 opposed.
The motion fails.
Motion fails.
The motion to deny fails.
Motion to
So-
deny fails, so we can have another motion to approve on the table because the motion to deny failed.
Right, I think what we should do is send this back to the planning commission for maybe a little bit more cleanup to just, I think that the docks are a little bit excessive, and even, some of the housing, I think, seems legitimate, and some of the rest of it, I think, is a little bit overkill, in my opinion. So I just think maybe getting something that's a little bit even more scaled back, I think, maybe brought before us. So sending it back to the planning commission for a little bit more would be,
So is there specific areas that you want to remand? Or is there a number that you are comfortable with for an amendment? I'm sorry
guess-
that puts you on the spot.
I guess for me, maybe another, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Maybe how to,
Just please, hold off, please.
yeah, guys, listen.
We're in the middle of a motion, we need to make this motion follow through. I appreciate,
Yep.
Shannon's gonna get a lot of phone calls
No,
tonight.
well, I know. So I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, Vicky, is there maybe another process? I know that we've had a lot of comments and a lot of things with it, or is there maybe another committee that it could, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
The planning commission is the committee or the commission that you task with this.
Okay,
So, like I said, you can approve it, you can amend it, you can deny it, or you can remand it back to them. If you remand it back to them, you should state what specific parts of it you would like them to look at, rather than,
just generically sending it back to them.
so if there's something about it that's really giving you heartburn,
too much.
then we should let them know that.
I,
Do we want to table it?
Or if there's something very specific that's giving you heartburn, you could amend it now.
well, I feel like it's gone pretty quick. This whole process has gone pretty quick, in my opinion. I think slowing it down a little bit is, that might be one of the reasons to send it back, but, the docking thing was something that's given me a little bit of heartburn, I guess, so that's been something that has been, for me, one of the biggest concerns that I had this whole time.
So to make that an official motion, Vicky, how should we state
I'm
this?
sorry, I've got,
To make this a motion, how should I make this motion? Sorry. I'm complicating the
then you
process
would
here.
you would move to remand it to the planning commission for consideration of whichever items there are that you are concerned about.
I'm concerned about the number of boat slips. I'm concerned about the dock usage.
Okay? And so we could remand that to the planning commission to come back with an amendment to that part?
Yeah.
So we have a motion to amend and specifically look at the docking system.
No.
Motion by Shallon. Is there a second? Is there a second? Without a second, that motion fails. Is there any other motion regarding this ordinance?
I made my motion. Can it?
Joe, do you have an opinion?
We're not going to have a majority one way or the other. I'll make a motion to table the ordinance here until the July council meeting, the first council
So
meeting
we
in
have all
July.
5 council members in
Yes, we have
attendance.
We can have a majority vote then.
I will second that. So motion by Joe to table until July meeting when all members of the council and mayor are present. Second by myself. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
3 in favor, 1 against. Ordinance, action is to table the discussion. Thank you for bearing with us, and I'm sorry this is prolonged once again. But please understand, we're putting a lot of thought into this and not rushing it. So give us some time. Open forum is always an opportunity at every council meeting. Action item 7D, resolution 2021-54, granting CUP for Winters.
Isaac Winters has proposed to construct a boat storage facility on property owned by Nancy Winters. Do you want to recess for just a second
yeah.
while they close, let them leave?
We'll wait, let you guys step out and then continue. I think we're
Okay.
good.
Sorry about that. Okay, so Isaac Winters has proposed to construct a boat self-storage facility on property owned by Nancy Winters at 138 Trunk Highway 71 North. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the request at its June 8th regular meeting. The commission recommends approval at the request based upon the following findings. The procedural aspects of the public hearing have been met. The application, publication of the hearing notice, and mailed requirements had all been met. The request is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The Sauk Center zoning ordinance currently considers self-storage facilities an appropriate conditional use in the C2 zoning district. The land area setback, shoreline, floodplain, and wetland requirements shall be met. The proposed use with conditions would be compatible with the surrounding vicinity, which is commercial in nature and mainly served by the motoring public. No evidence has been submitted that would indicate a depreciation of property values in the surrounding area. The proposal will not increase excessive requirements for public facilities such as sewer, water, and electricity, as these services are currently available. They include the following conditions: that the applicant shall reduce erosion and stormwater runoff onto neighboring properties by installing gutters and downspouts directed away from adjoining properties; that all lighting used for exterior illuminate, including off-street parking areas, shall be shaded or diffused so as to reflect the lights away from adjoining property and away from traffic flow; and that fencing shall not exceed a height of 8 feet unless a higher fence is deemed necessary as part of a conditional use permit. And you do have a copy of the location of it on 138 US Highway 71 North, and then you also have an artist rendering of what the building will look like. And so we are looking to approve resolution 2021-54, granting the conditional use permit for Isaac Winters.
Under this conditional use permit, that limits the use to specifically what they've stated. They can't change in a year from now and say, we're just going to make this mini storage for anyone.
Well, what it is in our city code is called a self-storage facility. His intent is to use it for boats, but it will actually be a self-storage facility. So if boats didn't work out and they wanted to put campers in there or refrigerators or whatever, he could still do that. But he's designing it as if it's for boats.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
Motion to approve.
any There is a motion to approve resolution 2021-54, granting CUP for Isaac Winters by Diane. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Joe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4 in favor, none against. Resolution 2021-55, approving variance Centricare.
I would like to refer you to the packet that I gave you that has the map of the Centricare campus on the front of it. So Centricare Sauk Center has submitted an application for a variance from the required setback from the road right-of-way, which if approved, would allow the construction of an addition to the existing nursing home at 425 Elm Street North. They held a public hearing last night. That's why this additional information was not in your packet. But upon approval and recommendation of the Planning Commission acting of the Board of Adjustment, you would be presented with that final approval. As you can see in your packet, they are intending to build an addition on the end of the nursing home. at approximately the same setback from 4th Street as currently exists. So the setback requirement is 30 feet. They are going to encroach down to 1 foot 7 inches, I believe, behind the sidewalk is close to what the existing one is, if you can see that. What the proposal here is to take have 60 beds, which are in 30 rooms, essentially, and put in 60 beds in 60 rooms. They're not increasing the number of beds, they're increasing to make them all single-use rooms, which requires that additional space. Plus there's additional requirements for dining areas and all those other things that the nursing homes have to work with. The Planning Commission did hold the public hearing to look at these different requests. It's a variance to be 28 feet 7 inches from the road right-of-way of 4th Street and a 28-foot variance from the 30-foot setback from Oak Street. So means they're going to encroach 28 feet into that setback requirement and 28 feet 7 inch into that setback requirement. The third variance was 5 feet from the rear setback or the interior lot line, but those lots are going to be combined. That lot line will go away. And then a variance to allow an additional impervious surface. 50% is normally required. They're requesting up to 80%, which we do allow with a approved erosion control and stormwater control plan. As you know, the original hospital was built back in the 40s and 50s, and so of course it has changed many times over that period of time. The Planning Commission went through all the ordinance statutory requirements, which you have been provided. I don't need to read them all for you tonight, although they are finding that it will not adversely affect the public health, welfare, and safety. We have no evidence has been submitted indicating granting this nursing home expansion would affect the public health, welfare, or safety or be detrimental to the property or improvements in the neighborhood, because it is very similar to what is there at the current time. The extraordinary circumstances that they say exist is because of the existence of the existing hospital and how they can tie into that existing hospital for the nursing home. That nursing home has been there for many years. CentraCare and the city did not create that. They're saying that granting of a variance will not allow a use that is not otherwise permitted. Medical facilities are a permitted use in that RC zoning district, so it is an appropriate use. CentraCare is also not seeking any economic relief from this proposal, and this request is not due to economic considerations alone. They also have a variance. They have 1 year after its effective date to get the permit for this project unless it is extended by the city. And they also had some recommended conditions that the application shall coordinate with the city staff and city engineer on that stormwater management plan. There's some stormwater lines that may need to be rerouted as a part of this, and they would be required to coordinate with the city on that. They did have a concern with the exterior lighting because of its closeness to the road and the neighboring properties across the street, and they're also requesting that shaded or diffused lighting. And that is kind of the two conditions that the Planning Commission put on that. You can see that, of course, because the city is the fee owner of the hospital and is leased to CentraCare, we have a vested interest in making this the best possible project that we can. If you have any questions for me or for CentraCare, they're all here and they got to sit here, and it'd be a shame to do this one really quickly when you spent so much time on the previous one. And I'm not quite sure if you all know Del, he's the administrator of the hospital. And then we have representatives from CentraCare here that can address the request and perhaps explain a little bit of the requirement for the nursing home and why they're moving forward with that. If one of you want to speak just for a few minutes of that.
Thanks, Vicki, and good evening, Council. I attend a lot of city councils around our service area, so I've seen it all. But tonight was good. I'll add that to the list. Anyway, again, this has been a long journey for the nursing home here in Sauk Center. When I first met Del, one of the projects he talked to me about was needing to address the nursing home. And as we looked at our capital planning, I will say it's embarrassing how long it took to get this approved, but it is actually approved and completely approved by our CentraCare board, so we're very excited about that. In our exploration of this, of the 60 beds in there, 54 of those are in double occupancy rooms. This has led us to realize that privacy is an issue and a concern. And one of the things that we really pride ourselves in is people being able to stay in the communities they've lived in when it comes time to need that care. And so we're very, very excited about this, undoubling of those spaces. The last thing we want to see is a community member leave their community because there's not adequate services for them. So again, the project is an addition of about 20,000 feet and then a renovation of the existing 20,000 feet. One of our charges to our designers was make sure we don't encroach more than the existing. I know it's a significant variance, but let's not make it any worse than the existing one is. So we've been able to accomplish that. And obviously the renovation of the existing is going to make that older facility look so much newer, so much more modern. And we've done a lot of research around how do we live well in the neighborhoods that we serve in. So if you have any other questions for me, happy to answer them. Again, my name's Dave Larson. I'm the Vice President of Facilities for CentraCare, and look forward to this project coming to completion. We have to start by September. That's the rule of the state of Minnesota under the approval. That's a 15 to 18-month project in total by the time we add the addition, move residents. This will be a big deal for these folks.
Yeah.
Renovate the existing, and then some will move back. It'll be an interesting process. So
I think it's a great idea.
it's going to be fun.
I
It's
really
great.
do.
So thank you.
I know myself after touring, I think there was an open house not that long ago, maybe last winter, seeing the second floor sleep unit, I believe is what was being put up there. And then the discussion about future plans. I'm glad to see it coming. It's much needed, I think. So I guess with that, unless there's any other questions, then I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-55 for variance CentraCare.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Diane, second by Joe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? 4 in favor, none against. Motion approved. And our last action item, approve Resolution 2021-56, authorizing submittal of application for ARP funding.
So the American Rescue Plan, recently adopted, approved by the federal government in March of 2021, includes provisions for funding to local governments. The city of Sauk Center is eligible to receive a portion of this federal funding. As such, it must comply with all federal and state requirements for requesting, receiving, spending, and reporting the use of the funds. The first step is for the city to request the funds. It is anticipated the city will receive approximately $475,000 over a 2-year period. The city must spend the funds in accordance with the ARP guidelines or return them. The attached resolution formally authorizes the submittal of the application for funding, and you can see all of the whereases that they request that we, as a result of a pandemic, we have to respond to that. It talks about our businesses and nonprofits and the city revenues have faced economic impact, and that the Congress passed this money and we can receive the money, but that we agree to spend it in accordance with Treasury guidance. So that's kind of in the nutshell. And so what we're saying here is we intend to collect its share of the funds from the state to use a manner consistent with the Department of Treasury guidelines. The city staff, together with the mayor and the city attorney, are authorized to take any action necessary to receive the city's share of money, and the city staff with the mayor and the city attorney are authorized to make recommendations to the council for future expenditures that may be reimbursed with these funds. So that's essentially what you're doing tonight, is to authorize us to get the money, tell us that we're authorized to spend it in accordance, and to submit a proposal. So that's really what this resolution is, 2021-56, to accept the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund established under the Americans Rescue Plan Act.
And I will make a motion to approve that application.
I'll second.
Motion by
sorry.
myself, Heidi, second by Joe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 in favor, none against. Okay, moving on to unfinished business, bid opening, information center site.
That was just to remind you of the bid opening meeting tomorrow at 4:45. I think Keith mentioned that earlier, so that's really the only item that I have.
That'll be down here or upstairs?
Yes, it'll be down.
Down here.
Down here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have no new business, so that brings us to the consent agenda.
And you do have item G that had changed slightly,
Okay.
that you should have.
Yes, I have the amended
Okay.
consent agenda. So we have a schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $190,473.53, paid claims for $199.90, for a total of $190,673.43. May checks for a total of $556,607.12. We have a gambling application for exempt permit request from Sauk Center Lions for a pull tab and raffle on July 28th through the 31st, 2021 at the Stearns County Fair. A request from Jeff Quistorf representing the Sauk Center Lions for a road closure for a soapbox derby on Sunday, July 18th, 2021, from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. to include 3rd Street North from Ash Street to Birch Street and Birch Street from 4th Street North to 2nd Street North. Request from James Metcalf representing the American Legion Post 67, application and permit for a one-day temporary on-sale liquor license for the beer garden during Sinclair Lewis Days in the Sinclair Lewis Park on July 16th, 2021. Fee and certificate of insurance are being provided. A request also from James Metcalf representing the American Legion Post 67, application and permit for a 4-day temporary on-sale liquor license during the Stearns County Fair from July 28th to the 31st, 2021. Fee and certificate of insurance are being provided. We have a request from Scott Kowski representing the American Legion Post 67, application and permit for a one-day temporary on-sale liquor license during the Stearns County Fair for August 1st, 2021. Fee and certificate of insurance are being provided. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion by Shallen, is there a second?
Second?
Second by Diane, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 in favor, none against. We have no informational items, so that brings us to an adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Joe, I'll second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.